The Birds, we're remaking The Birds now. And they must be all freaking out about the fog. Do you need to mark it?
No, it's all going in the camera. So.
I love that.
You ready?
I hope you're getting the fog outside. First foggy day, and I think it bodes very well for this interview. Halloween was extraordinary. It was made for no money, in no time, in a way that was unusual for films to be made, and certainly has never been replicated since I've been in the movie business, because it really was a very sort of familial experience. There were no trailers. There was one Winnebago for every department. So makeup, hair, wardrobe, all in one little tiny mobile home. You know, the caterer was a friend of John and Deborah's, and they came and made lunch for us. That was the experience. It was my first movie, and obviously that was the really lovely part of it, was this very warm family feeling. So Halloween was released, and you know, everyone assumes that it really became this big, big success, which it became after a period of time, but it was not an immediate success. And, you know, I was obviously aware that it was doing well, and people were saying, oh yeah, it's doing well in the country, blah, blah, blah. And then sort of nothing happened. Like nothing happened. Like it wasn't like the thrill that you kind of think is you're in a hit, and then the phone's gonna start ringing, and the phone didn't ring. And I ended up, after Halloween, doing a Charlie's Angels episode with Cheryl Ladd, where I played a pro golfer. I'd never played golf a day in my life. I had a trainer, and they taught me how to hit a golf ball, so I played a pro golfer on Charlie's Angels, and I did a Love Boat episode with my mother. So instead of having this independence that you think film success is going to bring you, it was the opposite. I was dependent. I did a TV show with my mother. And I think John, who at that point his relationship with Deborah had ended, I remember the day they called me to tell me that they were breaking up, because I was like their daughter. You know, I was 19, they were both 30, and we'd become close, and the movie obviously was important to me and to them. Very successful. And I remember they called me up, and I went up to their house in Hollywood, in the Hollywood Hills, and not knowing what they were going to tell me, and they told me that they were breaking up, and I remember crying. Well, because they were a couple. They were my movie parents, and it was sad. So then obviously John was with Adrienne Barbeau, and I think John called me and said that he was, you know, he felt badly that I hadn't worked, and he was going to make this part in The Fog for me.
Hi.
How far are you going?
Other side of town.
It's close enough.
Make it?
Yeah. Thank you.
It's funny, I watched The Fog before I did this interview. I hadn't seen it in a long, long time. And I forgot that she jumps into bed with him very quickly. And you know, it's pretty chaste. It's hardly, you know, gratuitous on any level. I mean, Tommy's wearing a tank top. Yes, I'm assuming on some level it was nice to be playing this kind of rebellious rich girl who's hitchhiking her way around with a strange man in a strange town during a strange circumstance. Yeah, I think it felt good. The wardrobe was much more to my liking, that it jived much more with me. Not that I was jumping into bed with people, but you know what I'm saying. It certainly felt a little more contemporary, and it was good. I liked it. You know, to be perfectly honest, John was with Adrienne, and I knew it was hard for Deborah. Deborah was my girlfriend. We had become girlfriends. And I think it was a little bit like working with your divorced dad. And so it was hard for me to tell you whether or not John was more sophisticated as a filmmaker. I'm also not in the movie very much. I'm in the movie just a little bit. You know, it's really the whole town part, and I'm this sort of peripheral character. And so I didn't see a lot of the film making. You know, I'm in a car, you know, we're driving a lot. I remember a couple days out on the dock, those kind of scenes. I don't remember the mastery of his filmmaking being something I was aware of, because I was more aware of the social, emotional aspect of the fact that he and Deborah were still working together, but they were no longer lovers. He was with another woman, she was in the movie, and all of that swirling around was very, either it was very reminiscent for me of my childhood with my parents being divorced and my father having a new wife, and I don't know, it was something, I have actually less concrete memories of The Fog. My mother was in it. You know, I mean, it was a weird time, and I think I was more emotionally involved with something than I was as acutely aware of the filmmaking, whereas in Halloween, I was acutely aware of the filmmaking.
Kathy, the Coast Guard's out there looking for them. Now, they're gonna cover the area pretty good, so really all we can do is wait.
I understand, Sheriff.
I know that John and Deborah were happy to know my mom happy to know them, et cetera, and she was Janet Leigh, I mean, you know. So I'm sure when they wrote the movie and they knew they had this part of this townswoman whose husband, you know, gets killed out on the boat, I'm sure she was like the first person they thought of. And the truth is, I'm glad we didn't have a lot to do. I think it would have been weirder for me, to have had a lot to do with her in the movie. It was nice to be in the movie with her and in a couple scenes with her, but, you know.
Now wait, get rid of that!
You know what, honestly, it's not my kind of film. I don't think it's just not my kind of film. I mean, I was scared when I was watching it recently. There's some lovely moments in it, some lovely images. You know, ghosts and, you know, it's just not my bag. I am surprised that it has such a popularity because I just don't think it's that good a film. But I'm grateful to John for giving me the part. I feel like I'm biting the hand that fed me. Sorry, John. You know, I'm being honest because I'm 54 years old now. What's he gonna do, fire me? You know, I mean, I'm allowed to have that opinion. It's not my favorite film, but I am grateful to him beyond measure.
I think I'll go to Vancouver now.
Well, The Fog preceded Prom Night and Terror Train. So I did The Fog, and then at that point, Prom Night and Terror Train came in. And Prom Night and Terror Train were part of this Canadian tax credit that was created where American movies could be made in Canada and using Canadian actors, Canadian crew. And they were allowed, there was a formula, and they were basically allowed 2 above-the-line actors to be American, and then the rest had to be Canadian. So a bunch of movies got made in Canada that way. And Prom Night was the first for me, where I was one of the 2 members of the, you know, American contingent, and then the rest of the crew and cast was Canadian. So You know, prom night was the first time I ever made a little money, actually, and so it felt good for me that I made a little money, and you know, it was prom night. I mean, it wasn't anything. It was prom night. I mean, it didn't have and Terror Train was the same thing. It was a Canadian film, a very difficult shoot. It was shot all night. The entire film was at night, in a train packing warehouse in Montreal in the winter. And the train packing warehouse that we shot in, which means that it's basically a warehouse where you drive a train in and then you pack it up and then drive it away, is a non-insulated, you know, cavernous building. And we shot it at night in the dead of winter in Montreal. And so the train packing warehouse was freezing. The train itself was very cramped when you were shooting on it. And if you weren't in the scene, you were sitting in this train packing warehouse. It was really tricky. You're switched, it was a complete night schedule. It was very cold. And you know, the movie is the movie. It's not great, it's fine. The Scream Queen name occurred probably after Terror Train, because at that point I had done 4 horror films. They were moderately successful. One was massively successful and the other was moderately successful. And yes, I think it was coined for me. You know, at the time it felt, honestly, to be queen of anything was a good thing. Road Games was within that grouping. It's a thriller. It's not really a horror film. It's more of a psychological thriller. Richard Franklin was a respected thriller horror director in Australia. He was sort of the John Carpenter of Australia. Again, it was that same thing where American actors can come, but everybody else has to be Australian. I forgot, they had an actress hired, and then they fired her so that they would hire me. So of course I was hated by the crew because I took a job away from an Australian actor. I think they had to pay her, is my guess. But when I showed up, I didn't remember that I had taken this job away from an Australian actor, and I think that crew was really pissed. So I think it took some time for them to welcome me to the movie. And you know, it was a weird movie. It was a road picture. We were basically driving across the Nullarbor Plain and shooting as we went. You know, Australians are interesting people. And there are a couple crazy Australians on this movie. There was this guy Grant, who was this famous stunt guy. He was nuts and really interesting. And you know, Richard was a talented director, you could tell. He had his producing partner was a woman named Barbie, and she looked just like Deborah Hill. And so it was kind of an interesting combo, you know, male director, female producer. It was an interesting experience. I want to be really clear. You know, I did Halloween 2 for the fans of these films, because John didn't do Halloween 2. And that felt really weird to me. It felt really weird to me. We're making a movie that picks up where the first movie left off, and John didn't want to direct it. That was weird to me. Rick Rosenthal stepped into John's shoes. I mean, that was a very difficult thing to do, I'm sure, to create something that's yours, but you basically want to replicate the same vibe. So I think Rick did a good job against, you know, difficult circumstances. And I recognized that the passion wasn't there and that it was kind of a payday movie for everybody. And I understood that. And again, I felt like the audience deserved, you know, my participation and John and Deborah's. You know, it's quite good. I mean, Halloween 2 is actually quite good. It's scary and there's stuff in the hospital and it's all. There is a moment in that movie. You know, in the first Halloween movie, there are 2 moments where the audience groaned at me. And I would say to them kind of out loud in the theater, I'm sorry, I had to. You know, the throwing away the knife. Like throwing away the knife. But you understand, if I didn't throw away the knife, we have no movie. So there are these moments where I have to, as an actor, basically do things that inherently I disagree with. But she wouldn't do that. She has to do that. They're just things you have to do. So in Halloween 2, you have the experience where I'm hiding in the car and all the police and everybody shows up. And I fall out of the car onto the thing, and then I do this great scene where I claw my way along the asphalt, my nails. I remember that, it was awesome, you know, but I can't get my voice out. It's like, are you kidding me? The people are 10 feet away and you want me to go, help. Like I can't scream all of a sudden? Ugh. See, there's a moment where you go, really? But I'm gonna find my voice the minute the door's shut. So it's like, help, 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 door shut, help. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So, you know, but I had a perfectly good time on that movie. I knew that after finishing Halloween 2, that I couldn't do another horror film or I would have no opportunities. I was worried I wasn't going to have any more opportunities anyway. But I was young enough and I felt that although I was the Scream Queen, I still felt I had other opportunities coming and that if I didn't stop then. So it was probably the only conscious decision I've ever made as an actor to not do something. I actually said it out loud. I said, that will be it. I'm not going to do any more. And the irony is that, like, within a day, I was signed to play Dorothy Stratton in the NBC TV movie about the life of her, or her life and death of the playmate who was killed by her husband. And so I went from one horror film really to another, but it was a very different, because this was now very glamorous. It was very much about what I looked like. My body all of a sudden was discovered by someone, and now all of a sudden I was playing a centerfold in a very true life, very dark story. So yes, it was a conscious decision on my part. It was the correct decision on my part, and I could have languished for a very long time looking for work, and it turned out to not happen that way. I was so astonished that I got to be in the movies. You know, I didn't feel very pretty, and I had no kind of marketable talent. It wasn't like I went to a performing arts college or Juilliard or RADA where I could have these tools. I was just an actor. I was asked to do a lot of things in these films. You know, people kind of look at horror films like, you know, horror films. They're incredibly hard to do. The technical side of acting in those films is difficult. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of fear, rage that you have to portray. The circumstances are often arduous, and you also have to suspend a lot of belief, and you have to create a real sense of something that's the counterpoint to the unbelievable part of these films. And that takes a good actor to do. And I really think it gave me the confidence, you know, to, like the song in New York, New York, if I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. I really do think it was a little bit like horror film university. And it was my way of going through to university, which I didn't really do. I credit and thank, you know, John and Deborah primarily for their confidence in me. It gave me confidence, and those movies allowed me to do Prom Night, Terror Train, Road Games, Halloween 2, And all of those gave me the confidence to then go off and do a movie that I did called Love Letters, and then right away go off and make Trading Places, and then, you know, after that, the next and the next, and then Fish Called Wanda. And it really has worked that way for me. The biggest characters and films that I have done have direct correlation to John Carpenter, because without him, I just don't think I'd be anywhere. I don't think I would have made it. And, you know, I can't thank John enough, and there's probably no way I could ever repay him.